Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we're looking here at the 12 Mahajan series, and this is our 11th Mahajan, Sukadeva Goswami. So just a quick recap, we're studying the 12 Mahajans. And the 12 Mahajans, who are they? They are exalted devotees. So Mahajan means a great soul. Someone whom the Lord has empowered to impart spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge to us. And so by following their instructions and studying them and their glories, we can achieve perfection in our life. So these Mahajans are, 12 of them are mentioned in the great literature Srimad Bhagavatam, and we've been studying them in order, beginning from Lord Brahma. And now we have our 11th Mahajan, Sukadeva Goswami. So who is Sukadeva Goswami? He is the topmost personality of all the self-realized souls. He's an empowered, so he's an incarnation of Srimati Radharani's parrot, who came especially to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam, illuminating thus the age of Kali. So when we talk about Sukadeva Goswami, we have to talk about the Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll look at the Srimad Bhagavatam in great detail later on. So who is Sukadeva Goswami? He is the son of Srila Vyasadeva. And who is Srila Vyasadeva? He is himself an exalted personality. He is an empowered incarnation of Krishna. So Srila Vyasadeva compiled so many different scriptures. He compiled the four Vedas, as we'll see later on, the Upanishads, the Puranas, Mahabharata, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Vyasadeva imparted Srimad Bhagavatam to his great son, Srila Sukadeva Goswami. And we'll see how Sukadeva Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam to another personality, a great king, a great devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit. And by speaking this Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami achieved perfection in the devotional principle of chanting, kirtanam. So we know that there are 9 principles of devotional service, bhakti, and so Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu-smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. Previously we looked at Bali Maharaj and how he achieved perfection in Atma Nivedanam, surrender to the Lord. And here Sukadeva Goswami, he achieved perfection in chanting, in kirtanam. So how did Sukadeva Goswami come in this world? We know that he is, as we mentioned, Srimati Radharani's pet parrot, Suka. So what happened is, when Krishna and Radharani were wrapping up their pastimes on earth, Srimati Radharani instructed her parrot Suka to stay back and speak the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the spiritual world, Srimati Radharani when Srimati Radharani was on this earth, she would speak the Bhagavatam to her parrot, and she would feed him pomegranate seeds, and he would repeat the Bhagavatam. So it was a loving exchange between Srimati Radharani and Suka the parrot. And so when Srimati Radharani had to go back to the spiritual abode at Goloka Vrindavan, because Krishna was wrapping up his pastimes on this planet Earth, so Srimati Radharani, being full of compassion for the fallen souls, she knew in Kali Yuga, which is the age of darkness, people would need to hear the Bhagavatam to get enlightenment. So she instructed her parrot Suka to stay back and impart the Srimad Bhagavatam to the souls. So then Srimati Radharani and Krishna, they left this planet. And so because Suka the parrot could not hear Krishna Katha anymore, he became very sad. He became very sad, and so Srimati Radharani, she said to him, wherever the pastimes of Krishna are being told, you will not feel separation from me. So eager to hear the pastimes of Krishna, Suka, the parrot, searched for a place where Krishna's pastimes were being told. And as instructed by Radharani, he went to Bhubaneswar, where Lord Shiva resides. And there, Lord Shiva is engaged in speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam to his wife Parvati. So Suka reached that place, and he quickly hid behind the branches of a nearby tree so that he could listen. There, as we said, Parvati Devi was sitting next to Lord Shiva, and he was telling her the beautiful katha from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Parvati Devi was listening, and she was making a sound like So Lord Shiva knew that she was listening, and so he went on, and Parvati was listening, and she was going, But then at some point, Parvati Devi, she dozed off. Now, Suka, who was behind the branches, could see that Parvati Devi had fallen asleep, and he became very worried that Lord Shiva would stop narrating the Bhagavatam. And so Suka came up with a strategy. He mimicked the voice of Parvati. So Shiva, hearing Parvati's words, he continued narrating the Bhagavatam, and Suka kept listening. But then at some point, Lord Shiva noticed that his wife had fallen asleep, and he was wondering, who is that going and so he looked around, and then he noticed Suka in the tree. Now immediately Lord Shiva got up, and he started to chase Suka, thinking that he was unqualified to listen to the intimate pastimes of Krishna. So that's the reason why Lord Shiva was chasing Suka, because he was actually narrating some very confidential pastimes to Parvati, confidential pastimes of Radharani and Krishna. And as we know, these pastimes, people who are not qualified, who are not devotees, might think this is just some mundane pastime between a boy and a girl, and so misinterpret and cause offenses to the Lord by thinking wrong. So that's why Lord Shiva didn't want anyone to overhear. So Lord Shiva chased Suka. Suka flew away. He chased Suka, and Suka flew away with fright until the parrot reached Vyasadev's ashram, where Srila Vyasadeva was also narrating the Srimad Bhagavatam to his wife, actually. So his wife, called Vitika, the wife of Srila Vyasadeva, was there in the ashram, and she yawned and opened her mouth, and immediately Suka thought, this is, he has to take shelter, so because Lord Shiva was coming after him. So immediately, out of fear, Suka flew into her mouth, and so he entered the womb of Vitika when she yawned. Lord Shiva, who was chasing Shuka, arrived at the ashram, and Lord Shiva asked if he had seen any parrot. He related the whole incident to Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva replied that anyone who has heard the Srimad Bhagavatam is freed from the cycle of birth and death, so Shuka's life should be spared. And so Lord Shiva then went away from the ashram, and Shuka, in the meantime, he was in the womb of Vyasadeva, and he stayed there for 16 years. He didn't want to come out of fear of Maya, the material energy. We know what Maya is. The material energy of the Lord is so strong that it puts everyone in illusion. We think we're the body and that our life is meant for catering to our bodily needs, for enjoying. We become puppets in the modes of material nature. So Shuka was very scared about this material energy of the Lord, and he didn't want to come out. But Vyasadeva became worried about his wife, who had been carrying him for 16 years. So Srila Vyasadeva spoke to Shuka in the womb, and he said, "Why are you not coming out? Please come out and give your mother some relief." And Shuka said he wouldn't come out unless Krishna himself came and gave him the assurance that he would not be under Maya's influence when he came out. So Vyasadeva had to go and get Krishna from Dwaraka, and we can see in the picture that Krishna himself came there and gave him the assurance, and only then Sukadeva Goswami came out of the womb of his mother. And it's interesting because as soon as Sukadeva Goswami came out, he wasn't like a little helpless baby. He was fully grown, and he was still naked. Immediately he started walking away from his father's house, because he didn't want to be entangled in this web of family life, affection. So he immediately he left home to take sannyas. He walked away, even while being naked. So actually, Srila Vyasadeva, he predicted that his son would leave home just after birth, because Srila Vyasadeva, he could see things. He was a great personality. He knew his son would leave immediately. So, knowing that, Srila Vyasadeva had carefully instructed Srimad Bhagavatam to him while he was still within the womb of his mother. So, Srila Vyasadeva chose Sukadeva Goswami. He chose to impart this knowledge to Sukadeva Goswami, because Sukadeva Goswami was free from all material desires. And so Srila Vyasadeva chose him to become the recipient of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is said to be the ripened fruit from the tree of Vedic knowledge. He chose Sukadeva Goswami for that. So we said that Sukadeva Goswami, he left home immediately for accepting the renounced order of life, even without having undergone any reformatory process, any ceremonies. And so Srila Vyasadeva followed him due to intense feelings of intense separation. Although Vyasadeva cried out with anxiety, "Oh, my son!" only the trees echoed in response to the aggrieved father. And when Sukadeva Goswami passed by a pond where there were some damsels bathing, some beautiful girls were bathing, They did not even cover themselves, although both the girls and Sukadeva were naked. The girls didn't cover themselves. But when they saw Srila Vyasadeva approaching, now Vyasadeva was wearing clothes, unlike Sukadeva Goswami. But when the girls saw Srila Vyasadeva, immediately they quickly covered themselves. So Srila Vyasadeva noticed that. He was very astonished at this inconsistent behavior of the young girls. So he inquired about it from the girls. Srila Vyasadeva asked the girls why they covered themselves when he was passing by, and not when his son was passing by. So they replied, "Your son is purified of all material contamination." They said, "Your son looked upon us without making a distinction between male and female. He is transcendental to this mundane sexual relations. You, however, make such a distinction." And that's why they said, "You're a householder. You make such distinctions. Therefore, while we feel no shame before your son, we must cover ourselves before you." And therefore, and that's what happened. So, Sukadeva Goswami, he was walking very fast, and Srila Vyasadeva could not bring him back. So so what happened is, Srila Vyasadeva sent 2 disciples to bring him back by reciting 2 verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that was what brought Sukadeva Goswami back. So what are the 2 verses that were spoken to Sukadeva Goswami that made him change his mind? So the 2 verses are from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Vyasadeva had written those verses, so he used them to bring his son back. So the 2 verses are from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, verse 23, and the other verse is from the Srimad Bhagavatam again, Canto 10, verse 21. Chapter 10 and Chapter 21, verse 5. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 21, verse 5. And so let's recite the first verse. So there's 2 verses. One of them describes Krishna's mercy, and one of the verses describes Krishna's beauty. So the verse that describes Krishna's mercy is the one from Canto 3 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 2, verse 23, which goes like this. Aho bakiyam stanakalakutam jigham sayapaya yadapiya sadvi lebhe gatim dhatri uchitam tatonyam kamvadayalum sharanam vrajema. Translation: Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon Putana, although she was unfaithful, and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. So we know in Krishna Lila there was a demoness called Putana who would kill children. She was sent by Kamsa to kill Krishna. So she smeared poison on her breast, and disguising herself as a beautiful woman, she pretended to be a nurse sent by Vyasadeva from Mathura, and she nursed Krishna with a breast full of poison, and she was hoping that Krishna would die by drinking the poisonous milk. But we know what happened. Krishna killed her, but she then merged into Krishna's body. She achieved liberation. Although she was trying to kill Krishna, Krishna only accepted her motherly service as a nurse, and so he gave, out of his great compassion, gave her the position of a mother to this demoness. And the next verse, which is from Canto 10, chapter 21, verse 5, which describes the beauty of Krishna, is as follows. Barhapidam natavara karnayoho karnikaram bibhradvasah kanaka kapisham vaijayanti chamalam randhran venuradhara sudhaya purayan gopavrinde vrindaranyam swapadaramanam pravisha gita kirtihe. And the translation of this verse is, wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, blue karnika kara flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and the Vaijayanti garland, Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the cowherd boys sang his glories. So this is the beautiful verse of how Krishna is entering the forest, and how beautiful he looks as he's going in with his friends, with his cowherd friends. So upon hearing these beautiful verses, Sukadeva Goswami turned back and he agreed to come home with his father. So then Sukadeva Goswami heard the Bhagavatam from his father. So we see that he actually, the scriptures say that he heard from 4 sources. So we saw how as a parrot he heard the Bhagavatam from Lord Shiva, and then he heard it from Srila Vyasadeva, but he also heard from Agastya Muni and Narada Muni and Devala. According to some sources, to the scriptures, he heard a lot of Bhagavatam, and so he was very, very learned. He was an authority to impart this transcendental knowledge. So coming next to the wonderful scene where he spoke this Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. So before we go into that, let's talk a little bit about Maharaj Parikshit. So he was the emperor of the world, and he was dearly loved by all his subjects and the sages, actually. So what happened is, one day Maharaj Parikshit, he went out to hunt, and while he was out hunting, he felt very thirsty. He felt very thirsty. So he wandered about trying to find some water. And while wandering about, he He was also very tired. He came upon the hermitage of a sage called Shamika. The sage now, he was absorbed in deep meditation. Maharaj Parikshit asked the sage for some drinking water, but he didn't respond because he was not in external consciousness. He was in a trance. So Maharaj Parikshit felt unwelcomed and neglected, and he momentarily became angry due to the hunger and thirst and tiredness. He found a dead snake near the hermitage. He picked it up with his bow and placed it on the sage's shoulder as a sign of return for a cold welcome. And then he left the palace. Now, we need to understand that Maharaj Parikshit, he had never disrespected Brahmins before, and he didn't have any bad qualities or bad habits, and he didn't purposely insult the sage. His anger was circumstantial. Actually, it is said that the Supreme Lord, because the Supreme Lord wanted the Bhagavatam to be spoken, he arranged for it. So he bewildered Maharaj Parikshit by his energy, and that's why Maharaj Parikshit acted like that. Now, Shamika Rishi had a 5-year-old son called Shringi, and while playing with other boys, he heard about the king's offense to his father at his hermitage. Now, Shringi was the son of the Brahmin, so he had Brahminical power, both by birth and by training. But he was immature and inexperienced, and he didn't have proper culture, and he didn't have tolerance. And also, because of the influence of Kali Yuga, he was very puffed up with his Brahminical power. So Shringi proudly said, "Oh, just look at the sins of these arrogant kings. They are like crows and watchdogs at the door, and the Brahmanas are their masters. How can they expect to enter the house and dine with the master on the same plate? So now that Krishna had disappeared, I shall punish them myself. Just see my great power." So here's a little note, here's something we can ponder on. So we can see how, due to anger and arrogance, people in a position of power may misuse their power and harm the innocent. So Shringi, with his eyes red hot with anger, cursed Parikshit Maharaj. "On the 7th day from today," he said, "a snake bird will bite that wretched king who insulted my father." Parikshit, now we need to understand that this punishment that was meted out by Shringi, it was disproportionate to the mistake that Parikshit committed. Because Parikshit did commit a mistake, but it was small. Yet the short-sighted Shringi, without proper thinking and because of arrogance, gave him such a severe punishment. So this snake bird is not a creature we can see in this material world. It's a mystical creature. It has the head of a snake, and the rest of the body is a bird. And this snake, it actually spits fire. There's very fierce fire that comes out of its mouth. So that was the creature mentioned there. So Shringi, he returned home, and he cried loudly when he saw the dead snake around his father's neck. And so Shamika Rishi, hearing this loud crying of his son, opened his eyes, and then he saw the dead snake around his neck. Now he just threw it off. He didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't so important. He asked Shringi, "Why are you crying? Did somebody harm you?" Then Shringi explained what had happened, how he had cursed King Parikshit. Now, we have to understand that the father of Shringi, so this Shamika Muni, when he heard this, he wasn't pleased with his son. He was actually not pleased at all, and he was very repentful. He said, "Oh, you have committed a great sin. For an insignificant offense, you have given a great punishment. You're so immature. You do not know that the king is the best among men. Citizens live in prosperity, being protected by such a noble king. A king is a representative of God, and he rules the kingdom on behalf of God. When such a king is abolished, the world becomes filled with thieves, and the unprotected people, they scatter like lambs. Innocent people will be killed and injured. We shall be responsible for all these sins." Emperor Parikshit is a pious and saintly king. He is a Raja Rishi, and he has performed many sacrifices for the welfare of humanity. He does not deserve to be cursed when fatigued by hunger and thirst. You have unnecessarily cursed him, and you've misused your power. So we can see what happens here. There's a little note we can make here, that power without self-control and discrimination can be very, very dangerous. So Shamika Muni then prayed for his son. "May the Lord pardon this boy who has foolishly sinned, cursing a sinless devotee." So Shamika Muni regretted his son's impudent behavior, his foolish behavior. He did not take the king's insult seriously. So what happens next is, when Parikshit Maharaj he returned home, he reflected upon his act, and he thought, "Oh, I have performed a heinous offense against a faultless Brahmin." He was thinking, and he felt ashamed for his unexpected behavior. So we can see here the behavior of a person who is honest. An honest person doesn't justify his mistake, but he tries to rectify it, and he sincerely regrets the mistake. So Maharaj Parikshit here was repenting, and as he was repenting, a student of the sage Shamika arrived at the palace and informed Parikshit Maharaj with deep embarrassment, "Dear king, you have been cursed by sage Shamika's son Shringi to die in 7 days. Please make necessary arrangements before you die." Now imagine this happens. What would be the response of Parikshit Maharaj? Now, any of us, if it happened to us, we would maybe be very revengeful, hateful, disappointed, angry. But Parikshit didn't become disappointed. He didn't become revengeful or hateful. He wasn't sad. Although his offense was minor and the curse was very severe, still Parikshit Maharaj did not become angry with Shringi or his father. He was very powerful, Parikshit Maharaj, and if he had wanted, he could have counter-cursed Shringi. He could have cursed Shringi in return, but he didn't do that. So we can see here, wherever there is power, there's a great responsibility to use it properly. A devotee never misuses one's power to take revenge on others, but uses it to serve the Lord. So actually Parikshit Maharaj, although being ashamed of his offense, he didn't go to Shamika Rishi's ashram to beg forgiveness, because Parikshit Maharaj felt that if he apologized, then that would further embarrass the sage, because already Parikshit Maharaj understood that from the message that the Muni had sent, that the Muni was very regretful and he didn't want to further embarrass him. So Parikshit Maharaj retired from all his duties as a king, and he gave his kingdom to his son Janamejaya. He went to the southern bank of the river Ganga, and he decided to fast until death came. He had 7 days. He didn't want to waste his time in enjoyment or doing anything else but engaged in the worship of the Lord, and so he went there and he sat on a straw mat. So he was now we know that Parikshit Maharaj was a great personality. So many different sages and demigods assembled there from different parts of the universe. So there were, because the news had spread very quickly throughout the universe, so all these great personalities arrived there. So we had sages like Narada Muni, Vyasadeva was there, Bhrigu, Vasishta Muni, Parashara Muni, Atri, Vishvamitra, Angira, Parashuram, Bharadwaj, Gautama, Chayavana, Sharadvan, Uttatya, Maitreya, Orva, and innumerable other sages and great kings assembled there on the banks of the river Ganga. And so Maharaj Parikshit welcomed all of them. He respectfully received the sages and he bowed his head. Although one Brahmin had cursed Parikshit Maharaj, he didn't hate all the Brahmins. So for one man's mistake, one should not hate an entire community, and we can see that from the example of Maharaj Parikshit. So the Devatas, they praised his actions, they showered the earth with flowers, and they beat celestial drums. So actually one may ask the question, if Maharaj Parikshit is such a great devotee of the Lord, because actually we know that Maharaj Parikshit, while he was in the womb of his mother Uttara, he was in great danger from Brahmastra that had been an arrow that had been shot by one very great warrior called Ashwatthama, and this heat was going to kill him while he was in the womb, and Krishna appeared in the womb to protect him. So then the question may be asked, so why is now Krishna not protecting Parikshit Maharaj? If he protected him previously, so he didn't die from the Brahmastra, why is Krishna not protecting Maharaj from the curse? So there's the great devotees and acharyas say there's two reasons. First, Krishna wanted to take Parikshit Maharaj to the spiritual world, which is an abode of eternal happiness and eternity. And second, by putting Parikshit Maharaj in this situation, Krishna wanted to give to all the living entities, to the humans of Kali Yuga and other ages to come, he wanted to give the Srimad Bhagavatam. And whatever Krishna does is always for the good of everyone, because he is a supreme well-wisher of all living beings. So here Parikshit Maharaj was an instrument of the mercy of Krishna to the whole of humankind. So that's the explanation. So coming back to the banks of the river Ganga, Maharaj Parikshit, he sat on a mat of kusha grass. He sat down facing north, on the southern shore of the Ganga. The sages who had assembled there, they praised Maharaj Parikshit, and they said, "O king, it is not astonishing that you have renounced your royal position to attain the eternal association of Lord Krishna. We shall remain here until you pass away from this mortal body and thus attain the supreme abode of the Lord." So then Maharaj Parikshit, he then folded his hands and he said, "I am very fortunate to see you all. It is God who has appeared in the form of a Brahmin's curse. I have taken the Lord into my heart. Let this snake bird bite me at once. I have no fear. I only desire that you all sing the glorious deeds of Lord Krishna. Even if I again take birth in this world, I just desire attachment for Krishna, association of devotees, and friendly relationships with all living beings." So the sages, they expressed their approval for Parikshit's decision. So we can see here, one who has complete faith in God's protection has no fear in any situation of life, as Parikshit Maharaj shows us by his example. So Parikshit asked the sages two questions. What is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And second, what is the specific duty of a person who is about to die? So Maharaj Parikshit asked these very, very important questions to the sages. And these questions, by hearing the answers to them, we can get enlightenment. Because these questions were spoken a long time ago, but they're still, the answers are very relevant to all of us at any moment in time. So then, at that very moment, by the will of Krishna, Sukadeva Goswami, the glorious son of Vyasadeva, arrived there. And there is a very beautiful description of Sukadeva Goswami mentioned in the Bhagavatam. It is said that he was only 16 years old. When he appeared there, he was only 16 years old. And it is mentioned that his beautiful body was blackish. So it was blackish like Krishna. In very beautiful due to youth, blackish. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and other parts of his body were all delicately formed. His eyes were beautifully wide, and his nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face. His chest was broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully striped. His arms were long, and curly hair was strewn over his beautiful face. And the hue of his body reflected that of Krishna. He had a very attractive face. His neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. So this is the beauty of Sukadeva Goswami. And because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smiles, he was very pleasing to women. So before arriving there, Sukadeva Goswami had been traveling over the earth as a naked avaduta. So who is an avaduta? Is a person that is totally disinterested in all kinds of social conventions. He was surrounded, so Sukadeva Goswami was surrounded by numerous women and children who followed him out of curiosity. Upon the arrival of Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit and all the sages, except Narada, Vyasa, and a few others, rose from their seats to show him respect. After seeing this reception of the chief guest, the wonder-struck women and children desisted from their frivolous activities, so that the atmosphere became calm and grave. So the son of Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami, sat in the exalted seat offered to him, and thereafter in the assembly of great sages, he appeared like a moon, just like the moon, surrounded by innumerable stars. He was very intelligent and he was ready to answer any questions. While bowing down to offer his respects, Maharaj Parikshit stood up with folded hands and inquired from Sukadeva Goswami with sweet words, "O Brahman, your presence has sanctified us. Simply by remembering you, one can become instantly purified. And so, what to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your lotus feet and offering you a seat? Your appearance here is certainly a manifestation of Lord Krishna's presence, of Lord Krishna's mercy upon me. You are the spiritual master of the great sages and devotees. So I beg you to explain to us the perfection for all persons, and especially for those who are about to die. What should a man hear about, chant, remember, and worship? What should he refrain from doing?" So Maharaj Parikshit said, Lord Krishna has accepted me as one of his relatives to show his affection to his cousins, the Pandavas, so he made this arrangement that I get to meet you. Otherwise, how have you voluntarily appeared here to bless me? Generally, you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. So we can see here that Maharaj Parikshit is a devotee and he sees the merciful hand of Krishna in this tough situation of life, and this is what we should all aim for. We should see Krishna's mercy in every situation of life. We should not be blaming others for our misfortunes. We should understand that this is an opportunity to surrender to Krishna, an opportunity to be stronger in our relationship with Krishna and in our spiritual life. So Maharaj Parikshit so Sukadeva Goswami then replied, "My dear king, your question is so glorious because it is very beneficial for all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing. Materially engrossed people do not see their inevitable destruction, although the truth is right before their eyes. During the day they work hard to earn money, and at night they pass their time in sleep and sexual indulgence. One who desires to be freed from all material miseries must hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for the highest perfection is to remember Lord Narayan at the end of life. So we can learn a lot from what Sukadeva Goswami is saying. These instructions apply to us. He continued, at the end of Dwapar Yuga, I studied the great literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, from my father. Although I was a perfectly liberated soul, I became attracted by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. For further advancement, because you're a sincere devotee of Lord Krishna, I will now recite Srimad Bhagavatam for the chanting of the holy name and glories of the Lord is the doubtless and fearless means of spiritual success. What is the use of a prolonged life devoid of Krishna consciousness? King Katvanga freed himself from the bondage of material life in a moment by taking complete shelter of the Supreme Lord. My dear King, you are most fortunate because you have 7 days to prepare yourself for death. At the end of life, one must be bold enough at the end of life, enough to fearlessly cut off all attachment to the material body and all desires that pertain to it. So Sukadeva Goswami proceeded to explain to Maharaj Parikshit how materialistic persons could begin their spiritual life by meditating upon the universal form of the Lord. After becoming more elevated, one can meditate upon the Paramatma feature of the Lord, who is situated within the heart. Then ultimately, when the personal feature of the Lord is realized, one can begin to act on the platform of pure devotional service. So after hearing from Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit said, O learned Brahmin, your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance, for you are narrating the topics of the Supreme Lord. Now I beg you to explain how the Lord engages his personal energies to create these material universes and then winds them up again in the sporting spirit of a player. Sukadeva Goswami replied, O king, when he had been questioned by his son Narada, Lord Brahma explained this subject just in the way he had previously heard it directly from the Supreme Lord. Narada had inquired, My dear father, firstborn among the living beings, you know everything, past, present, and future. For the entire universe is within your grip, just like a walnut in your hand. Whatever we see in this material manifestation appears to have come into being by your self-sufficient energies, yet we are made to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you because of seeing your austerities and discipline. So Lord Brahma said, My dear boy Narad, I created this cosmic manifestation after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence. Just as when the sun rises, then the moon, planets, and twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. It is only due to ignorance of Lord Krishna that people consider me to be the supreme controller. It is only because of the inspiration of Lord Narayan that I am able to discover that which was already created by him. In fact, I am also his creation. So Lord Brahma proceeded to satisfy Narada's curiosity by describing in detail the process of creation and the Lord's expansion of his universal form. He also concluded by saying, "O Narad, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari with great enthusiasm, whatever I say has never proved to be false. The progress of my mind has never been deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. So Maharaj Parikshit was very eager to hear the complete science of God, so he asked Sukadeva Goswami many questions. Indeed, just to express his great eagerness for hearing, the king said, "O learned Brahmin, because of my drinking the nectar of the description of the infallible personality of Godhead that is flowing from the ocean of your speeches, I do not feel any sort of exhaustion as a result of fasting." So Sukadeva Goswami also was very much enlivened by Maharaj Parikshit's Maharaj Parikshit's inquiries and sincere desire to know the truth. So in this way, Maharaj Parikshit listened to the entire Bhagavatam, and very soon, after 1 week, Sukadeva Goswami departed from the world. After 1 week, Parikshit Maharaj left this world. He sat on a seat of grass meditating on Lord Krishna, and then the snake bird Takshaka came there in the disguise of a Brahmin. After reaching Parikshit, Takshaka bit him, and the body of Maharaj Parikshit immediately got burnt to ashes. Everyone was astonished. The Gandharvas, the Apsaras sang, the demigods showered flowers and spoke words of praise. And so Maharaj Parikshit went to the spiritual world. So, so we can see, therefore, thanks to Maharaj Parikshit, the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 113, "O expert and thoughtful man," the instruction is given to all of us, "relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It has emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls." So it is said that if we have a fruit and it gets bitten by a parrot, the fruit becomes sweeter and juicier for those who are eating it, just because it got bit by the parrot. So here we can see the parrot is Sukadeva Goswami, is the parrot of Sri Radharani. He spoke the Bhagavatam, and because he spoke it coming from his lips, this Bhagavatam has become sweeter and more tasteful. And this Bhagavatam has been translated into so many different languages, including English, by our great Acharya Srila Prabhupada, who is here on the right. And thanks to him, we can read the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's available. Here's a link, Vedabase link. You can click on this and instantly access the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is so amazing. It's the literary incarnation of Krishna. So we know that Krishna, in this Kali Yuga, Krishna incarnates in different ways. So as Lord Chaitanya, who appeared 500 years ago. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the golden avatar, he's said to be the golden avatar. So he's Krishna himself. That's one incarnation of the Lord. And the second is in the holy name. So the holy name is another incarnation of Krishna. In this Kali Yuga, the holy name of Krishna is non-different. It's non-different from Krishna himself. And the third way Krishna incarnates in this age of Kali is in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the literary incarnation of Krishna. We can get the Srimad Bhagavatam and keep it in our house and read it, and it's like we welcome Krishna himself. The Padma Puran. So the Padma Puran explains in a verse, translated verse is, I meditate on the most merciful Sri Krishna, whose bodily hue is like a tamala tree. He has appeared for everyone's benefit in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is like Srimad Bhagavatam is like a bridge for crossing over the unending ocean of birth and death. The first and second cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam are his lotus feet, as we can see in the picture on the right. The third and the fourth cantos are his two thighs. The fifth canto is his navel. The seventh and the eighth are his mighty shoulders, or the mighty hands. The ninth canto is his throat. The 10th canto is his face, which is like a fully bloomed lotus flower. The 11th canto is his forehead, and the 12th canto is his head. So we can see that Srimad Bhagavatam actually is divided into cantos, as we can see here. We can see the 12 different cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is advised actually that one should not immediately skip to any cantos. Canto 10, for example, because it describes the beautiful pastimes of Krishna. One should read the Srimad Bhagavatam starting with the first canto, the second going in orderly way until we reach the end. Also, it is said that Srimad Bhagavatam should not be heard by professional reciters. It should be heard from the lips of devotees of the Lord, pure devotees of the Lord, just as Maharaj Parikshit heard from the lips of the elevated Sukadeva Goswami. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we said, was compiled by the father of Sukadeva Goswami, Srila Vyasadeva. He was the compiler of the Vedic texts. He compiled so many different literatures. So, as we mentioned earlier on, the Puranas, the 108 Puranas, the 18 Upanishads, Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam it's the ripened fruit of all the Vedic literatures. Srimad Bhagavatam is the best of all Puranas, and its glories are as brilliant as the sun. Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedic literatures. So we saw what he said already. He gave us the instruction here, actually, in the verse 113. He's told us that, O expert and thoughtful men, relish the Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. So we You know, in this lifetime, it's so difficult to read all these Vedic literatures. We don't have time to read all the 18 Puranas, the 108 Upanishads, and all the other Vedic literatures. But if we read Srimad Bhagavatam, that should be the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, that should be sufficient, because it's the best of all Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this complete knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam is available to us. So we see that Maharaj Parikshit, he was not only satisfied with material knowledge, but he was inquisitive about the character, the activities of great souls, the devotees of the Lord, the glories of the Lord, and the glories of his devotees. So all of these combined together, it makes up the complete knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam speaks of the highest goal of life, devotional services, divine love of Krishna. And according to all the Vedas, Srimad Bhagavatam is the very form of divine love. The 4 Vedas are said to be like yogurts, and Srimad Bhagavatam is like butter. And the churner of this butter is Sukadeva Goswami, and the eater of this butter is Parikshit Maharaj. So the literary incarnation of God is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Srimad Bhagavatam is free from the contaminations of material desires or modes. So we know a lot of Vedic texts will talk about material desires, how to attain material benefits, what ceremonies, what ritualistic activities to perform to attain all success, prosperity in this world. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, it deals with devotional service to the Lord, as we mentioned, and it is the highest of all literatures. We know the story of how Srila Vyasadeva was feeling very despondent after compiling all these Vedic literatures for the good of everyone, because having talked on all the Vedic scriptures, he was still feeling some void. And so then Narada Muni, who is the guru of Srila Vyasa, arrived on the scene, and he explained to Vyasadeva. He said, "Dear Vyasa, in the books you have written, you have not sufficiently stressed on the glorious path of bhakti. You haven't described the glories and pastimes of Lord Krishna. Please do it now. Only then will your heart be satisfied. Even an imperfectly written book is appreciated by saints if it describes the wonderful superhuman activities of God." So Narad Muni, he requested, bhakti transforms even sinful people into virtuous people. So please write Srimad Bhagavatam, emphasize the path of bhakti vividly. So that was the instruction of the guru of Vyasadeva, who is Narad Muni. So he inspired Vyasadeva to write the glories of bhakti. So Srimad Bhagavatam is therefore supreme among all the Puranas. Just in Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated, just as the Ganga is the greatest of all rivers, Lord Achyuta, the supreme among deities, and Lord Shambhu or Shiva, the greatest of all Vaishnavas, so Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest of all Puranas. It is mentioned that it is the spotless Puran. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas, because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramahamsas. Anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. So we know that Lord Krishna originally spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Lord Brahma at the beginning of the creation. And then Lord Brahma later on spoke the Bhagavatam to Narada Muni, who later on taught it to Vyasadeva. And then we see that Vyasadeva taught the Bhagavatam to his son Sukadeva Goswami, who then narrated it to King Parikshit, to Suta Goswami, the disciple of Sukadeva Goswami, and others. Suta Goswami also spoke the Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by the leader, sage Shonaka. So the Bhagavatam is bona fide. It's descended in a chain of disciplic succession that we call parampara. And all in this parampara, all the teachers are representatives of Lord Krishna, because they have transmitted the transcendental teachings of Krishna without deviations, without changing anything, without concocting or writing their own thoughts, without their own imagination. And they've done this for our good, our transformation. So if we sincerely hear Srimad Bhagavatam from an authentic teacher, then we can develop a love for Krishna. We can become freed from all confusions, all sorrows, and all fear. So any intelligent human being will take advantage of this timeless wisdom of the sacred Bhagavatam for an enlivening social and spiritual life. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, what does it deal with? So it deals with Sarga, primary creation, Visarga, secondary creation, Sthanam, maintenance, nourishment, Posana, Uti, material desire, Manvantara, the reigns of a Manu. So we already looked at the Mahajana Manu in a previous slide, previous presentation. So the Manvataras and how the different Manus reigned. Ishanakata, so activities, Ishanakata, activities of the Lord and his devotees, and finally deals with Nirodha, annihilation, Mukti, liberation, and Ashraya, so supreme shelter. So I advise each and every one of you to please get the Srimad Bhagavatam and relish the beautiful description of all these subject matters that we have just looked at. The Srimad Bhagavatam, so verse 1 to 18 says, Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati neshtike. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering a service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is established, on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So all glories to Sukadeva Goswami, all glories to Maharaj Parikshit, and all glories to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.